Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for giving me the platform to share. I'm going to share my slides right away. The title of my presentation is Prose Quality in Translating Biblical Poetry, Target Language Orality Research. Quality in translation is usually defined in terms of accuracy, clarity, naturalness, and acceptability. And the aim of this research is to enhance naturalness and acceptability. Naturalness in translating poetry. If poetry should be accurately translated, it should also be in the most natural form that can be recognized as poetry in the target language. A translation of Psalms will require a prior understanding of the structure and key features of songs in the target language. I have not really surveyed how many languages have translated poetry with or without a study of the poetry of the target language. However, much of the study on discourse focused largely on narratives, hortatory, expository, and explanatory discourse. Weisman and Spielman mention African songs as having the rules of poetry, but add that they almost defy analysis. The aim of this paper is to stimulate translators of biblical poetic books to attempt a study of the poetry of the target language, as they might find useful rhetorical features, poetic patterns, and structures to incorporate in their translation to enhance its naturalness, clarity, and accuracy. Most studies of African poetry discuss the genres such as panegyric, elegiac, cultic, spatial, purpose, which include war hunting songs and work songs. Some examples of previous work on translating poetry to poetry include the work of Makutone, Milanodi, and Naudi, who explored the relationship between the orality of the Old Testament as a source text and Sesotho as a target language to illustrate a performance translation using Psalm 24. Wendland also suggests analyzing the literary structure of a target language for a literary functional equivalence. For translating poetry into poetry, he uses Psalm 13 to illustrate a musical-like translation into Chichewa of Malawi. Theoretical considerations. Morai says that scholars of translation studies try to understand translation from the perspectives of language, linguistics, literature, pragmatics, culture, and ideology. He thinks that understanding translation in this way is a form of reductionism that does not treat translation from all complex systems in which it emerges. He argues for a philosophical perspective that encompasses the complexity of various phenomena involved in translation and translation studies. Marai's translation philosophy of complexity, in opposition to his idea of reductionism, is generally based on two critical concepts, which he calls complex adaptive systems and emergent semiotics. What are these? Marais refers to the various disciplines that impinge on translation as components, while translation itself is the whole. The complex adaptive systems through which translation emerges include language, text, literature, culture, pragmatic ideology, history, and so on. Emergence occurs out of the many parts through a system he calls interness or entering between the parts. What happens between the parts or systems and the process in which the parts constitute the wholes, he considers it a social emergence having to do with individual human interactions from which social phenomena emerge using semiotic system. Thus, the second aspect of Marai's philosophy of translation, essential to this study, is his conceptualization of it as emergent semiotics. Marais draws insight from Seale's linguistic philosophy of speech acts with analogy of A as B, as taking A as B is not particular to language alone, but to all semiotic phenomena. And in that case, it is more reasonable that if we try to understand semiotics in terms of the source text, that we need to also understand semiotics in the target context. Towards translating to the target language. A complexity approach to translating the Bible to a target language requires understanding the complex systems, factors, and norms in both source and target context. The linguistic and language systems, orality and literature, culture, society, social life, economic, agricultural, geography, and all of those factors, they constitute the myriads of complex issues that shape meaning making and meaning taking. And so Venland, in his paper Poeticizing the Psalter, argues that a literary structural analysis is necessary for a literary functional equivalence translation. Now, if we do that for the source, then it is just wise that we also do that for the source, for the target. Wenger, in a paper translating figurative language in Africa, argues that, again, it's converting figurative expressions in biblical Hebrew to plain text. Says, converting a metaphor to a plain language involves loss of information. She demonstrates this very well in her paper. Metaphors and imagery generally are an important aspect of poetic devices, both in biblical Hebrew and in many African languages. Makotuani, Milanode, and Naude discuss similarity and alterity in translating the orality of the Old Testament in oral cultures. They caution that the orality and other factors that shape the source text should carefully be considered. The orality of the target context needs to be analyzed too. Milanode and Naude further describe their research agenda as accommodation of both domestication and foreignization simultaneously to make the translation accessible and intelligible for the reader without domesticating the translation to read like an original text. Rigwe as a case study. This study is on Rigwe, a Plateau language in central Nigeria. It has some portions translated long ago by missionaries, published by British and Foreign Bible Society, and the New Testament was completed in 2012, and the Old Testament translation is ongoing. So the ongoing orality research is to enhance the translation of biblical poetry, especially the Psalms. The procedure for the research is this. 1, record several oral presentations of music in the Rigwe language. Transcribe, analyze the songs recorded, search for genres of songs, check macro and micro structural patterns in the songs, check what poetic and rhetorical features are found, study the sociocultural, economic, religious, historical, and ecological context in which the oral performances are made. And when these are done, what are the similarities and dissimilarities of features with the Psalms? Now, should this study be done from translated hymns? Generally, hymns, when they are translated, the translator focuses on the text of the Hausa hymns or the English hymn. And that does not provide us the most natural compositions for such an analysis. What about contemporary music composition? One, like that of Nuhu Joseph's Mberigwenji, Our Rigwe Land, might probably connect better. This is a refrain from the song. The song compares Rigwe Land to a child whose mother divorced the father after she became pregnant of him. A simile, that's a figure of speech. And even from this refrain, we see repetition of elements in succeeding lines. It tells us something. It has the Africanness of the song, of a song. Oral musical performance in Rigwe. Rigwe music may be classified into 4 categories: instrumental sounds and dance without lyrical verbalization, performed mostly by men. Dance accompanied by songs, drumming, and sometimes panpipes is the most prevalent form of music performed during major ceremonials. Specialized type of dance associated with the climax of the pan-tribal festival, and the mystical dance and music accompanied by the variable pitch drum known in West Africa as a talking drum. This research focuses on the second category, which provides more lyrics for the analysis. Genres of Rewe songs. There are 7 that I've identified. Panegyric, mostly headhunting poems that praise war heroes performed by women, love songs, laments and mortuary songs sung during mortuary rites, cultic poems, moonlight songs performed by children and youth, work songs performed mostly by women. Men's performances are excessively gyrated with intricate styles of dance, mostly accompanied by chants. So we shall illustrate with the poetic patterns in a headhunting song. But before that, if we were to compare the genres in the Psalms and that of Rewe songs, one is tempted to think that, oh yeah, we have praise in the Psalms and we also have praise in the panegyric songs in Rewe. But then there's a significant difference. That of the Psalms is praise to God, but for the panegyric is praise to ethnic heroes. And then a lament is a petition to God, and the lament in Rewe is there for mourning the dead. And then we also have some other categories of songs there. This is a photo of the men's dance troupe. What structural patterns do we observe? Structural patterns are determined by the song genre and tempo of performance. The panegyric songs performed during the Ezia dance have different structural pattern and have longer line lengths. The work songs have shorter line lengths that mark the rhythm of the work. This is an example of a work song. The lead singer sings 4 syllables. The response singer sings 3 syllables. As we see in the column in the middle, the refrain is formed by a couplet of 2 identical lines, and the sound of working tools provides the rhythm for the music. Except for line 8, the song is metrical. Line 8 has the solo part having 5 syllables. This is a song, but I wouldn't play it because of time. And this is the lyric. This song has 33 lines. Line 34 is ululation, which performers and onlookers join to express excitement. The song is performed by women during a special festival for honoring war and hunting heroes. The song reminisces achievements of some war heroes. Some of them are mentioned by name, pet names, metaphoric reference, or twisted for stylistic purposes. The performance of the song characteristically has a non-pausal and non-stanzaic form. It is sung line by line from the beginning to the end, non-stop, except for occasional interjections by excited onlookers or some performers. The above division represents probable stanzas due to the seeming thematic shifts and markers of aperture. The spectrogram above shows the lyrical performance without instruments and dance. The lead singer sings a half line while other singers sing the other half, occasionally overlapping with the first half to balance the length of the line where necessary. A second lead singer sings the next half line and the group joins in the second part, and that is illustrated in the second diagram there. We see a portion of the wavelength that stands for the first lead singer and the response, and then the second lead singer and the response, and then it goes in that way alternately. Looking at the spectrum closely, this is taken from Audacity. The top shows the time, and the next line shows the wavelength, and the third row there is it tells us the line of singing. Now, the portion shaded blue up to that point, it shows us the portion that is sung by the first lead singer, and then the area shaded yellow is the area of overlap, and then the area shaded black is the group response. And then all join together to hum the tail end together. And then in the second line, the second lead singer takes the lead, and then where the number of syllables are just sufficient to complete the meter, then there is no overlap. The group simply respond, and then all come together to sing the tail end humming. And in this song, every line ends with a long humming sound of about 2 seconds. Averagely, each line, including the final humming, takes about 7 seconds. Where the length of a line is relatively shorter, group response overlaps in some syllables of the first half with the lead singer by repeating the syllables in a kind of tail-head connection. Now, if we look at the line structure, what do we see there? Number one is syllabic meter. And then the second thing is thematic shift. And then the third thing, repetitions marking aperture. Now, if we focus on line 1, for example, on line 1 there in the table, the first half has 6 syllables, and the second half has 8 syllables. And then the portion that has the overlap, which is highlighted in bold, is 3 syllables, do, rigui. And if we put all of that, if we sum all of that together, it's 17 syllables. But because the 3 syllables overlap is sung by both the first half and the second half, that means it is repeated, then it makes the total syllables sung up to 20, but actual lines syllables is 17 there. And lines that are complete, usually there is no overlap. So that is how it goes. So the shorter the line, the longer the overlap, and the longer the line, the shorter the overlap, or no overlap at all. So the unequal poetic lines are still metrical. Now, does that mean that all the lines are metrical in that way? If we look at the number of syllables in line 8 and line 9, they have 19 syllables, and then there is no any overlap there, which means that the overlap might be optional. And then in line 30, the total number of syllables is 21. So we might say the entire song is near metrical. Now, what are the mechanisms for realizing syllabic meter in the songs? The syllabic meter is realized by phonological, morphological, and syntactic alterations within the lines in 4 ways. The overlap increases the number of syllables and length of shorter lines. Just as we have here, we have 2 overlap syllables that have overlap, and then they contribute to help in making a 20 syllables line. Then a second strategy is coalescing and shortening of words, which decrease the number of syllables and length of longer lines. For example, these 2 words can come together, and a portion of a second word is deleted. So it reduces to simply a final N, a nasal, which then becomes like an unvocalized final nasal of the preceding word, and reduces the syllables so that a meter can be realized. Then deletion of phonetic and morphological elements. When a word begins with a vowel, the initial vowel fuses with the final vowel of the preceding word and elides, reducing the number of syllables. This is an example here. In this word that is shaded yellow here, the initial vowel A of Eli, it fuses with the final vowel of the preceding word, and it is not pronounced, so it leaves only 1 syllable there. And the word, which is repeated 3 times here, which would have been 6 syllables here, because of this strategy, it reduces only to 3 syllables. The chanting of particles like a repeated, and then ahe, the same, I would say, and even the negative not, which sometimes comes at the end of a line, they only fill in the rhythm. They fill in the rhythm and tune where the lines are short. They occur at the beginning, in between, or at the end of a line to balance the meter, but are semantically insignificant. We have an example of it in this line at the beginning. They say it does not really mean that somebody is saying anything. The message is carried in the rest of the line. Now, if we pay attention now to the macro structure of the song, line 1 is repeated in line 33, forming an inclusio. And then stanza 4 begins in line 21, and then the line is repeated in the line 27, and it forms an inclusio for that stanza. And then line 24, which comes in the middle, forms a kind of an exclusio. Now, stanza 3 has the first 4 lines as a kind of a mockery, and then the next 3 lines as praise of some people. Now, the above division probably represents stanzas due to the seeming thematic division. Line 1 reoccurs at the end, line 33, forming an inclusive for the song. It occurs in line 31, probably to signal that the song is about to end. Now, if we focus also on the first stanza, now we see the thematic shift from line to line. Line 1 praises a war hero, hunter, and leader, but line 2 shifts to the excited young girl that is eager to sing. And then line 3 praises someone, a warrior that fought on horses, but line 4 warns younger girls who may be performers. Line 5 is mocking someone, and then is praising someone again. And then the 6th line is rather shifting away and lamenting the misfortune that probably caused the war. And the 7th line praises an emerging giant hero. So a hero is praised after a shift to a different theme. So the overall thematic structure now in the first stanza, stanza A, which has 7 lines, praises heroes in alternate lines. So the stanza has a structure A, X, B, Y, C, Z, D. And stanza B, the lines have similar theme, motivating young female performers, except line 9, in which a man laments that he's the only one to defend his household. And stanza C, the first 4 lines are mockery, introducing a Christian concept, mocking Satan and boyfriends of a certain clan. The remaining 3 lines praise a farmer's daughters, a swimmer, and a giant hero. Then line D is where we have that exclusio, and then the final stanza. Most of it is a repetition of lines in other stanzas. Line 28 motivates the young performers to sing. 29 to 30 marks some groups. Line 31 and 33 repeats line 1, and an inclusio that closes the song. Each line is a couplet, a separate verse of bicolon A, call, and B, a response. What rhetorical devices do we find? The lengthy compositions of epic songs that describe popular heroes' historical or mythological exploits lavishly use figurative expressions to carve vivid pictures of the hero's achievements. For example, in this example, the word rumbling field is an imagery of a battlefield. The nominal form of the verb, rumbling or thundering, describes the sound of thunder and qualifies field to give the picture of a battlefield with intense war. And then to turn stars into 2 parts describes the episode in which someone killed both the hero in war and his horse, and both lay side by side. So it uses a metaphor there of turning 2 stars in 2. Then here we have another metaphor again in the example 6. Silk cotton tree, a giant tree, is a metaphor for a hero. And then the branches of the tree, whether that's in tree or some other trees, give the picture of the enemies being slaughtered as 3 branches being pruned. And then onomatopoeia metonymy and metaphor in example 7, the same line, all of these occur. The word chere young girls is an onomatopic description of the sound of the young girls' ankle rattles, acha, used as a metonymy for the young girls. The expression to literally fill house is a metaphor for the mature girls who are near marriage age and are considered to be filling their parents' house. They're expected to marry and allow space for the younger girls to show their dancing skills. Then we have hyperbole of run sickness foolish, literally. Even the word kasha there, which literally means house of people, is used for a whole clan in the Rigwe. It's like their pet name. And the hyperbole here actually is in the fear there. The expression told who to run sickness or to run from an injury is the natural idiom for cowardice. However, qualifying it as foolish, to run sickness foolishly, is not the literal foolishness, but an exaggeration of the state of stupefaction induced by fear. Now, we have another example of hyperbole here. To put a pot on fire as big as touching the roof is an exaggeration, implying that the pots are so big compared to the amount of ingredients for the soup. And then irony, they do not want people to eat afternoon food with them. It's clearly in a language from those who understand the history. The people of this household were known to be wealthy and have surplus harvest. And they had food, the main course of food, corn porridge, which was meant for the dinner, and they also have it for lunch in the afternoon. So many people could join them to eat. But the way it is said, literally, it can be taken to mean stingy people, but it actually means that they were rather generous people. Sound effects. A deliberate pun or joke based on the multiple possible meanings of words for emphasis, ridicule, criticism, or humor is used, as in the word chokli. The name of the person is chokli, and a hawk is also kri. And when you say eri kri, is the house of a hawk. Now, the name of the person is a way to ridicule the people of that entire household. The name Chokre is like Anos of Kre, hawk, and the house of a hawk is also there. Now, they were ridiculed because a thatched roof of someone on the house was cluttered like a hawk's nest. Repetition, internal rhyming, and alliteration. We have an example here, Pe repeated in the second part of the line, and Chokumbekpe, the internal rhyming there. And then Kezenke is a kind of alliteration there. So we have all of this occurring in a single line. So idiophones are another category of sound effects. Idiophones are words wholly or partly duplicated and give the sound of the thing they describe. The word doro there, the idiophone is actually dororo, but one consonant is reduced intervocalically. And the word describes the sound of water filling a container. It is reduced in this line, Doro, for metricality, and describes how overflowing the river was. The word on its own may not really have any, but it's just a description. And then phonetic change. The consonant D is pronounced R occasionally in songs. For example, the Ra in that line 13 there of one of the songs, the Ra there actually is supposed to be Da. So Rata, the word name actually is Data, but in songs, sometimes it is changed in that way, and then it creates a kind of an alliteration with the ranka in the next line, and we have both name ranka and that and rata in the line 16 there. So it's just there to create a kind of alliteration through the lines. Things to consider when translating the Psalms. Rhetorical features as in traditional Rigwe songs will enrich a translation of the Psalms in the language, making it more natural and acceptable. A Rigwe song may be metrical. The language orality system provides room for phonological and morphological adjustments for realizing poetic meta. The translator does not have to incorporate this into his translation, since the songwriters they just need to see for written text or hear for oral translations of the Psalms having the features of a song on the language. Their work is oral composition of songs, and they can rearrange the text in a way that fits the tune of their compositions. If the translator simply does his translation and insert those words there in such a way that the songwriter can simply delete some portions or add some words that can just be added to complete a line, then his music is complete. Paradex provides tools for poetry indentation, such as Q1 for poetry level 1, Q2 for level 2, and B for blank line demarcating stanzas. If the lines of a psalm are structured in this way, they fit in nicely with the lead and response lines of traditional Rigwe songs. In the situation where a line of the translated text becomes longer than the Q1 and Q2, the translator uses his discretion in formatting the lines in a way that can be made to fit in the music. Figurative expressions or other forms of comparisons derived from an understanding of the ecological context, culture, agriculture, flora and fauna, and sociology of the area enhance the beauty of poetry in the target language. Also, idiophones, wordplays, and other forms of sound effects are used in Rigwe songs. So the translator needs to use his creativity to see how these features can be created in the Psalms. If the poetry of the Bible is translated into this language without the natural features found in songs in the language, it can be an accurate translation, it can be good. But then the poetic formatting alone does not make it poetic. The poetic beauty and impact may be lost. It would be good to find and use poetic features of the language to poeticize the translation and make it more natural. Thank you very much for this platform to share.